At that time, the Buddha made a prophecy that this boy would be born later in the land of snows as the second Buddha. And we believe that child was Lama Tsongkhapa, born in the 1400s, that founded Ganden Monastery on a mountain at about 16,000 feet in central Tibet. Ganden at the time held over 7,000 monks. The highest form of life in Tibet was a Buddhist monk. Every family had one boy at least that became a Buddhist monk. In fact, 1/3 of the population of Tibet was monks and nuns. So if this was Tibet, every third person in this room would be in monks today. Ganden, along with 5,000 other monasteries, completely destroyed with the Chinese invasion. There are 12 left. There are museums for Western tourists. 2 million Tibetan people vanished with this invasion. We talk about the Holocaust. It's happening today in Tibet. There's an extermination of a race and a culture of people. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, whom you see pictured here, will not allow the Tibetan people to fight back. Buddhism is non-violent. We don't believe in harming any single living thing. We believe that how real peace is brought about on the planet is through non-violence and dialogue. So for 40 years, Tibetan people have been waiting for the return of their country peacefully. Very unusual. The only people on the planet like this. There were 37 survivors from about 3,500 members of our monastery, or our half of the monastery, that arrived in South India in the late 1960s. They began camping in tents, and their first class was 15 boys recruited from the 9 Tibetan villages that surround us in South India. Slowly, over the last 40 years, the place has transformed. It's now a major monastic university with over 5,000 members. The unusual thing about a Buddhist monastic university is that there's no tuition. Everything is provided free of cost. Your clothes, your room, your food. We take anybody from any culture, any race. We'll take care of you your whole life for free. This is very different from a Western university. The general course of study lasts approximately 25 years, 6 days a week, 5 a.m. to midnight. 5 years is spent on the 6 perfections. This is giving, ethics, patience, joyful perseverance, concentration, wisdom. Another 5 years spent studying systems of logic, factors in the mind. What is mind? Another 5 years spent studying emptiness. Now this isn't nothingness. It's more how both internal and external phenomena are composite entities. They're made of many parts. So when we start to examine the major phenomena inside the I, the me, it's also part-like. We can't find any essence to this me. In fact, if we go home and look for it tonight, we can't find it. We can just find more and more parts. The I is actually fabricated on 5 aggregates. It's projected like a movie every day when we wake up. It isn't really there. We just assume it's there. And once we assume that this I has independent existence, then we grasp for mind. Then all the negative minds come. Anger, hatred, desire, attachment, on up to 84,000 negative minds. These 3 classes require 6 hours a day of Socratic debate. This is the main method of learning in the beginning. First, all your texts have to be memorized. Then you go into the debate courtyard after you've had a lecture, and you examine the teachings. Maybe the text is wrong. Maybe the Buddha made a mistake. Maybe the teacher's wrong. Anything can be challenged in the debate courtyard to see if it stands up to logic and reason. After that, we might study cosmology, up to 3 years. Presently, there's no difference between quantum physics and Buddhism about the generation of galactic systems, as well as the particle-like construction of external phenomena, how everything has a particle-like construction. For some reason, Buddhism harmonizes with science. 2 to 3 years is spent on monks' moral behavior, Fully ordained monks have 253 precepts or vows they take to protect their actions with living beings and the environment. 4 we cannot break: killing, lying, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Buddhist monks have no sexual contact. If one receives a Geshe degree, Geshe means the concentration of virtue. After that, one would go to one of the tantric universities, the Buddhist tantric universities, exclusively study tantra from 3 to 5 years. After that, one would come back and specialize or do long solitary retreats, at least 3 years, 5, or 10 years, somewhere in a cave or a hut, for a long time until one perfects one's practices. 2 meals a day are still tea and bread. It's very difficult for us. Presently, how we've been taking care of ourselves is through touring since 1989. This is our 2nd visit to Sioux City, and we're very pleased to come here. We always try to harmonize with other religions. Look how we're the same. We have the same purpose on the planet, to bring about peace and harmony amongst living beings. We're going to play some monastic music for you now. This piece of music is from the Kong So ritual, which means the fulfillment ritual. It's done twice a month, 2 days in a row. It begins at 4:30 in the morning and finishes about 10:30 at night. It's an 18-hour prayer. We're even fed, seated cross-legged in this prayer. We can feed, clean up for 1,000 people in 15 minutes. You might ask yourself, how do we do this? So while we're doing this prayer, we're going to make an invitation to all the celestial beings, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the Buddhists, the Bodhisattvas. We're going to ask them to enter this community college, bless the beings here with all their virtuous activities to try to bring about peace and harmony on the planet. So in your mind, try to collect your family, your friends around you, maybe even your neighborhood, maybe even Sioux City. Just make your mind as expansive as possible and try to include as many members as you can.
Hello, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to say thank you for giving us an opportunity to share our culture with you. Because of your help, we could still preserve the precious culture of Tibet, and which is like we consider that was one of the highest opportunity, though it's so hard that we live in South India in refugee camp. But still we try our best to preserve this precious culture. And so our next performance is called Sioux, which literally means cutting. And this practice belongs to one of the highest practice, a tantric practice. And this is found by a female practitioner called Majik Lamdun. She is the founder of this practice. And while this cutting means, while performing this ritual ceremony, one has to cut down every pieces of your body. You have to visualize cutting every pieces of your body, and then offer to hungry ghosts, evil spirits, those who are in need of one's like physical body. And therefore, in order to practice, if one is not advanced, if you don't know details about this practice, it's one of the most highest risk. Because after if one is not if you don't know anything about it, you may, if by offering, if you get scared, you may die, you may go crazy. Even if you know how to offer and if you don't know how to project back your own image, at the end, the part of one's body will miss. Because you're offering your parts of your body, cutting down into pieces, and it has to offer to the evil spirits and ghosts. So therefore, in order to practice, one has to be very, very sure about what kind of practice one is doing. And this kind of practice is done only in like a tragic area, cemetery, or where the evil spirits that gather in such kind of spots. And it has to be done in the middle of the night, all alone. Therefore, one has to be very, very strong. And even in order to practice this one must need the vow called the Bodhicitta vow. That means to represent that there is a head of Bodhicitta, wearing that, and then has to make an offering. So the main purpose of doing this practice, cutting down one's body, is to practice how to practice non-attachment towards the self, and to recognize that who really are, me. Because we all know that we try to cling towards self, called I. And by practicing this called cutting, is the way that will directly let you understand about that whatever we attach to these 5 aggregates, the gathering of all the blood, the bone, the fluids, that we try to say, this is me. So this will let us know that in reality, the I doesn't exist of its own. Only we try to, because of grasping to ourselves, that we call, this is me and mine. The moment that when we have a grasping to ourselves, then we make a differentiation between mine and yours. When there is a differentiation, then if you like it, then attachment arises. If you don't like it, hatred arises. If you don't know that it is an ignorance, because you don't know what is yours, or mine and yours. So that way, everything that we motivated with actions through the grasping to self, that includes the 3 delusions we call the desire, attachment, anger, or hatred, either the ignorance. These are the major motivation that motivates us to engage into the actions. So by performing this practice, is to know directly about who is really grasping to ourselves, and in reality, we should not be grasped to ourselves. And also to let us know that life is impermanent, and while we have this precious opportunity, when we have this precious human body, make proper use of it to do something with virtuous actions, especially like promoting peace and harmony, prosperity. So this is to let us know about how to bring peace and harmony. So, and as well as to know, highlight about impermanence of a life, and to know who is really that we are trying to grasp to ourselves. And our next is called Kando, which means a Dakini dance. And this dance is we perform especially in a very special occasion for the long life of one's spiritual master. And the reason that why we perform this is the deities and angels and dakinis that comes from the pure land to invite one's spiritual master. Then we request all enlightened beings, even the master, to remain into this world to have a long life, good health, and to turn the wheel of Dharma to benefit the sentient beings. So this is the whole purpose. And as well as while performing this Dakini dance is to making prayers towards all the great master in the world to remain into this world and to show every sentient beings towards the right path, to be free from the sufferings and to achieve the ultimate happiness. This is the whole purpose. So even from your side also, if you might have a master, an individual master, a spiritual master, try to join in with your proper prayers and motivations for the long life, because we really need a proper guidance. We all know that how things are happening. It's called a degenerated time. Everything is degenerated. There are a lot of violence and disaster. And in regards of this, in order to bring peace and harmony, one must need a true guidance to show us to the path to achieve the happiness. So this is to make a proper wish so that one will have a pure master. In Buddhist point of view, the master is the very key. Like we say, though the Buddha, the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, is very kind because he is the founder of Buddhism, but still, one's master is higher than Buddha, because to introduce about the path to achieve enlightenment, one has to know through one's master. Without having a master, even the Buddha may exist, it cannot help. So that's why even when we make a prayers, it comes, the first prayers is towards the Guru, because I make prostration to the Master, then Buddha, and then Dharma and the Sangha. So that's why how the Master will be considered as most supreme. And also when you find a Master also, one has to make sure that whether that person can really be your teacher or Guru or not, because you have to be very cautious about it, because especially in the West, it's very, very risky path, because sometimes you may get ended with the wrong master and then falls to negative path. So according to the Buddhist point of view, in order to choose the master, it takes at least 12 years to check whether that person can be reliable to be your teacher or not. Even the student has to check like that, even the master has to check that whether that person can be your student or not. It will take at least 12 years. But we don't have so much time to look at through that way. But the moment that when you feel by his practice, by his knowledge, and you know that person has a reputation of his practice, then immediately one has to find that and accept it. Otherwise, one cannot wait for that opportunity. So that way, like, master is key to the practice. And once you accept as a master, there must be a commitment between the masters and the disciple. The commitment is even the disciple has a commitment to follow the true guidance of master to reach the ultimate happiness or ultimate enlightenment. Even the master has a commitment to lead the students to the Pure Land or the Buddha. So that is the actual commitment between the master and disciple. So if you have a master that to make a wish and prayers for the long life of one's own master, if one doesn't have, make a wish to have a proper master in future. Thank you. debate. So, which is like one of the highest way to practice. Usually in Buddhism we call that two different kind of meditations. One is called post meditations. You still your mind or consciousness in one point and try to be there. The another way of meditation is like you analyze whatever the teaching that you receive through, you analyze every details. Is another way of meditation. We call that analytical meditation. So out of these two, the analytical meditation is the highest meditation, because you cannot, like some of the object of meditation that you cannot steal your mind. For example, if you want to meditate on the great love and compassion, there's no such thing that you can keep your mind in one point. You have to know every details about it. And as in monastery, this is one of the highest way to practice. And even to make sure that for whatever practice we follow, we do, we have to make sure that whether that's making sense or not, whether it is helping you or not. Not like, oh, it is said so that you have to practice. There's no such thing called blind faith. You have to make sure about that, whatever you practice. Once you make sure, when you know every details about what are the benefit, what is, the reason, everything, then whatever you practice will be very strong and stable. So this is the way that we debate on it. And even when we use this gesture also, every gesture that we perform is very, very high significance on it. Otherwise, like you will feel, when you debate, if you don't know anything, you see like it's a big argument that they scream and squeezing and pushing each other. But if you know the details about it, it's really nice to know it, because it signifies many things. Like when we debate, we use with the word called D. D is the cease of wisdom. Means you have to invoke with the wisdom, and with the help of wisdom, we raise the right hand on top, which is the sword of wisdom, and then our left hand is like this, means the oceans of samsara, the psychic existence in your hand, and then we clap with another hand, and then cutting down the oceans of samsara with the sword of wisdom, and then bring up to the pure land. This is to signify, and then we hit one left leg and on the feet to the floor or the ground, to close the door of the dead. And then we start with one, like a verse of any topics. And then one who is going to sit over here has to answer it, like, then they will debate on, like, why, or what proof, what reason, what are the benefits. So that way they debate on every teaching that we receive through, making sure any teachings that it has to make sense. If it is something that is like that doesn't help you to transform, we can always leave that. So even the Buddha himself has said that it doesn't mean that the teaching is given by me or something higher being or such thing. It doesn't mean that you have to follow. You have to check yourself. You have to find out the logic and reason. If it seems like it is helping you to transform, to change yourself, then you follow. If it doesn't help you, you can leave any time. So that is the whole purpose of debating and practicing. So therefore, even like you also, like when you practice, always try to make sure that whether it is helping you or not. And the reason Dharma, we call Dharma. Dharma is anything can be called as Dharma, but it has to help you to transform, to be a better being. If it helps you to transform to be a better being, that will be considered as a true Dharma. Otherwise, you may mention any kind of highest practice or anything, but instead of helping your transformation, it will make you worse. That means that's not a Dharma. And especially in Buddhist point of view, whenever we practice any Dharma, it has to, one's motivation must at least to have a better rebirth in your next life. That is the least motivations. With this motivation, if you practice, then it will be considered as a true Dharma. Otherwise, whatever we practice only for the concern of this life, then we don't call this one as Dharma. This is not Dharma, we call this as a business. So that way, one has to make sure that at least one must have the high motivation, at least to have a better rebirth in one's next life. So the master Rinpoche is in a hot seat, so Rinpoche is going to answer, that someone's going to stand up and ask a question. So I'll try to interpret it between. The debate, the topic is on the omniscient mind. So this the topic is teaching which topic is taken from the enlightened being. Master is not telling the truth. That is lying. That means you lost. Again lying. So did you know anything? They were debating on the omniscient mind, because the Buddha's wisdom or the omniscient mind is the highest achievement or the wisdom, and that can know everything. So it's debating about what is the meaning of that omniscient mind. Is anything that even the solitary realizers or individual practitioner and the ordinary being cannot know the ultimate meaning of the wisdom. So it's saying that the debate they came into how about the solitary realizer or the hearer, because they can understand, they can know. So Master saying they can know, but in the text it reads about the omniscient mind of the ultimate of Buddha. Even the solitary realizer, and then a hearer vehicles, and the ordinary being cannot have a wisdom or knowledge to know, to fully understand the meaning of the ultimate wisdom. So he's saying no. The Master said that even the solitary realizer they can understand. Now they ask a question that is it necessary that every the ordinary being and the solitary realizer or the hearer vehicles, they won't understand the ultimate meaning, and which is too far beyond our conceptions? So Master said yes. Then how about the impermanence of the sound or anything, the phenomena? Is it that that is far beyond from the perceptions of ordinary being, or the far beyond from the perceptions of the solitary realizer? Because to know the ultimate meaning of the impermanence of any phenomena is really hard. So, but still we can prove by giving certain logic that why the phenomena is impermanent, because it exhausts every instant moment of the time. That expresses that it is an impermanent. But when we look at through the whole, that we cannot see that this is exhausting or this is impermanent. So this is something that beyond our perceptions. So then the debate about it, like taking, how to prove that. So the master has to go, because he cannot remember the text, that how it, the some of the text that he has to repeat. So that's why you're not telling the truth. So they have to go through law again and again. So that way they have to, we have to debate on omniscient mind, the wisdoms of why we are trying to achieve the ultimate wisdom, and what are the benefit of achieving wisdom. And so that way we have to debate. And so we call the what we call the Buddha. Buddha is the one we call encountering those who have achieved the ultimate, obstruction to liberations and obstruction to omniscience. Once you encounter these two, the great delusions, then you achieve the full enlightenment. So those who are into the ordinary stage and the hearer vehicles, that we haven't encountered those delusions, because our grasping to ourself is very strong right now. That's why we even don't have even positions to take another form of rebirth willingly that we want to, because we haven't encountered anything. But those great beings who have already encountered those delusions, that means they can take any form of rebirth willingly wherever they want to be. Like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he is the person that he can be born wherever that he wants to be, because he had encountered the obstruction to liberation and has highly achieved through. So this is how that one has to prove through that everything must make a logical reason. And especially Buddhist strongest belief is on the law of cause and effect. Law of cause and effect, and the actions, the negative actions and the virtuous actions. These two, one has to know every details about it. Once you know within every details of these two major topics, then one will know that what are the things that one has to do, what are the things that we are not allowed to engage into it. Why? Because of this, that will be imprints of it. So we believe that nothing happened accidentally. Everything has a reason, the imprints behind that. The one when we face through it, we ripen the imprints, and when we react with negative, that means we create negative imprints again. Though it exhausts, but at the same moment, it creates the negative actions. So, for example, how it helps, someone who make us angry. That means something relating to the past is happening to make us angry. And if you respond with patience and tolerance, means that negative imprint is ripening with patience. But instead of with love and compassion, if you react again with hatred and anger, those who make us angry, if you react with anger and hatred, though the imprints from the past is exhausting at that moment, but at the same time, because we react with anger and hatred, it creates another negative imprint. So that means it rolls on and on like cycle of imprints, law, cause and effect. So the only way how we can exhaust is by practicing patience and tolerance, doing virtuous actions. So this is the way that it will help to stop the cycle of existence. Once we stop, engaging into the negative actions, that stop the cycle of negative imprints. Once there is no cycle of negative imprints, there'll be always a positive or virtuous imprint. That's how we do. Yeah. So now they perform is a yak dance. So you all might be familiar with this animal called yak. And to tell you, there's no female yak. It's only a male animal of Tibet. And this animal can survive even in the highest altitude, even the coldest temperature. In fact, the highest altitude of the United States is maybe the lowest altitude in Tibet. Maybe the capital starts from 17,000, I think, the capital of Tibet. So, and this animal is one of the most precious. Even who want to take care of it really love to take care of it because it's so playful, enjoy, and like it always like jump up and down. Even there's a song that the yak herders, they sing a song that if you are not familiar with the land of Tibet, you'll feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. But if you're really familiar with the land of Tibet, you'll feel like you are in the paradise of the world because everything is pure. No pollutions, the mountains are clean, every grass it grows is the natural herbs or medicines. So the streams is pure, the snows are clean. Some parts of the parts of Tibet, like overnight snow, is at least 24 feet. So you can guess how cold it will be. We call the cold, how we can consider is when you squeeze your hand, it cracks. That would consider, oh, it is cold. So this animal, usually the yak dance will begin to perform when the 5th Dalai Lama, right now it's the 14th Dalai Lama. One of his past incarnations, the 5th Dalai Lama, he visited the northeastern part of the Tibet or capital called Sioux, and he gave many teachings in that town, and before he returned back to the capital, that is Lhasa, all of a sudden a very heavy snow covered all the mountains of Tibet. So during that time, since there was no car or train or plane, we have to walk through or ride a horse or yak. So during that time, since the snow was so heavy that His Holiness, the 5th Dalai Lama, could not pass through. During that time, the kind protector of that region, Sioux, manifested into the form of yak, a huge yak, and who pierced through the snow, making a way that His Holiness, the 5th Dalai Lama, could pass through. So since then, to honor and remember the kind protector of the Sioux, and as well as to remember the precious animal of Tibet, that we begin to perform this yak dance. And even now that we believe that by performing this yak dance, that we receive the blessings of this protector. That's why you will definitely feel the difference of the energy. And every part, the animals, we use every part of his body because everything we use, since like to grow vegetables is very, very difficult in such a high altitude, and so we have to survive. And to let you know that Tibetan people won't kill a small animal so that hundreds of animals can feed only one person. But Tibetan people has to kill one animal that can feed hundreds of people. So that way, and every time they have to win, even they have to kill, they have to go through the same procedure as how to make a prayers and have a better rebirth for the animals, doing all the ceremonies and rituals and making prayers for the animals to have a better rebirth. So that way we use everything that how we do is relating with the spiritual practice. Like we even in our society, when even the people die, we don't bury or cremate, we offer to the vulture. We cut down every pieces of our body and make use, even the body, we make use of it and then offer to the vultures, those who are in need of food. So that way that we try to make it something useful to this, even the dead meat. So that way how we consider and consider as like a spiritual. And even like in our like high up in the mountain, we never let anyone to climb on top of it because we always believe that we believe in the spirits of the mountains, the spirits of the rivers and lakes. So we never pollute the environment, never allow them to climb to the mountain, believing that these are the true, the richness of the country, and we try to respect as a holy. So therefore, whenever we visit high up in a mountain, we burn an incense, making offering the spirits to the mountains and the rivers and the valley, considering as a holy. So that's how we treasure the environment. So all the way through from Tibet, we could bring only one yak. So I hope our yak would love to see you all. Thank you.